Hey guys, hello and welcome to Naveed for Speed. In today's video, I am going to be showing you around this car. It's the Cupra Tavascan. The Cupra Tavascan is only the second fully electric car from the Spanish brand, and it's their first SUV, fully electric SUV. So I'm going to be showing you around the exterior of this car. I'm going to be showing you around some of the interior features of this car, and I'm going to be taking it out for a drive. Now, the one that I have here is a static model. I am going to be driving a proper model, one that's out on the road at the moment. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to be showing you around this static model, and this particular one is the 282 brake horsepower single motor version, and it comes in the V1 spec. So it's a very basic spec, the very entry level version of this car, which starts at around 48,000 pounds, roughly around that sort of price range. And the price of this car, depending on which version you go for, can go up to around 60,000 pounds. And if you add the winter pack onto that, we're talking another £1,500 added onto that. But what sort of powertrains do you have in the Cupra Tavascan? Well, it comes with the same 77 kilowatt hour battery regardless of which version you get, but there's two different versions. You can get a single motor version which powers the rear wheels, which is what this one is, and you can get a dual motor version which is four-wheel drive. The single motor version makes 282 brake horsepower, and the four-wheel drive, the dual motor version, makes 335 brake horsepower. So there is quite a bit of a difference, and I imagine that you will feel that difference quite on the road in terms of the difference in performance. But let me show you around some of the exterior features of the Tavascan, because I think the Tavascan actually looks really cool. It kind of points towards Cupra's future design language and the direction in which they're wanting to go in, and it seems quite a little bit different to some of the other Cupra cars which all sort of follow the same design language, and they all sort of come on the similar sort of platform. But let's take you around the car. So if we start off at the front here, if you look at the sort of front bonnet area, with other cars like the Leon, like the Formentor, you get that prominent shark nose front bonnet. But in this, you do sort of get this sharp bonnet at the front, but it's not as prominent as you can see in cars like the Formentor. But again, I think it's fresh design, it's different to those cars, and I think it looks really good. Nice big Cupra logo in the bronze. I've mentioned before how much I like the Cupra logo because of that sort of bronze premium feel to it. You get some Cupra lettering over here, really cool. And then as we move further down towards the front of the bonnet, now again, you get those sharp angles, but you get less of the sort of triangle features that you have seen in some of the other cars. But still, it's striking, it's sharp, it stands out. I think it looks really cool. But you do actually get some of these little indents in here which are in this sort of kind of like a triangle shape. Yeah, I think it looks really cool. Of course, you don't really need cooling up here because it's a fully electric car, so that's why I suppose they've changed the design of this car compared to, for example, the Formentor and the Terramar and the Leon. But as we move further towards the side of the car, I want to quickly very quickly mention these headlights. Now these are LED headlights. In the higher trim levels you get matrix LED headlights, but this is just the V1 version, so you just get LED headlights, and you can see those sort of triangle features that we have come to expect in Cupra vehicles. Before we move over to the side, I do want to mention the sort of bonnet area here, which has this sort of dent, full power, almost like a power bulge thing going on here. It makes the car feel really quite muscular and quite appealing. I think it looks really good. If it was just flat, it would have been quite boring, but that's obviously Cupra's design language. That's the sort of Spanish design flair, and I think compared to a lot of other cars out there on the market, especially cars in the Volkswagen group, I think the Cupra cars really do stand out, and they are really attractive. That's why we're seeing so much of them on the road. As we start to move more towards the side of the car, now you can see the sort of somewhat sharp features that go along here, which add to the sort of whole design in terms of how it looks powerful on the side, but it's not as sharp as I would have expected. It's sort of really quite smooth, and that goes all the way sort of to the back here. But before I get to the back, I want to quickly mention these door handles, which I think are really cool. So they don't sort of come out, you just sort of, it's almost like you've got a button on the back that you have to sort of pull, and they sort of open like that. But I'll tell you more about the interior of the car when I get there. But yeah, let's carry on moving towards the back of the car. How you can see how it all sort of comes to this sort of coupe design, sort of almost a bit like the Formentor. It's like a coupe SUV, except this one is a little bit odd because it has that high ride height, but it still sits quite low. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Ferrari Purosangue. It's kind of in its own class. It doesn't sort of follow a rule, if you will. As we sort of move towards the back of the car, now you can see this sort of rear spoiler, which it sticks out quite prominently. And then you can see this sort of rear light bar, and it's got the incorporated Cupra logo, which is all illuminated. Again, I saw that on the Terramar, and this car obviously got unveiled before the Terramar, so obviously I can see how that moved from the Terramar, from the Tavascan, and then incorporated onto the Terramar. But you can see how this car has influenced the Terramar a little bit, and you can also see how other cars have influenced this car. Again, I'll show you some features when we get inside the car, but I think the back of the car again looks really cool. I would have thought that it looked very smooth and very homogeneous, but it actually has loads of these sharp features. This spoiler that goes here, you can see all the sort of bodywork here, and then at the bottom you get the sort of rear sort of bumper, sort of almost like a diffusory type look, but again, it makes the car look really quite sporty and really attractive. Yes, I do have to mention these sort of rear lights in these triangle shape, which are sort of 3D, like we saw on the Terramar. I think they look really cool, especially at night. They look really nice. Let me have a look in the boot, because I've not actually had a look in the boot of this car. So there's your boot space. Now, I don't actually know how much boot space there is off the top of my head, but it looks quite sizable. Do we have any space underneath? No, we don't. And I don't think the Tavascan actually comes with storage in the under the bonnet either. But yeah, this is loads. You can split. You can put the seats down with a 60-40 split. But yeah, this looks actually quite huge with this sort of hatchback boot. So easy to get stuff in and out. But you do have this sort of lip. Actually, can we put this sort of? No, we can't. There is a sort of ledge here that you can use to maybe change the height of the floor of the boot, which I think maybe in the higher specs you might be able to do, but not here. You can't necessarily do that. So maybe I'll go, we've got some more of the higher spec vehicles up there, so maybe I'll go check that out. But yeah, that is the Cupra Tavascan, and I think it looks quite promising. I think it'll be a popular car. Let me show you around the interior actually, and then we'll go out for a drive. So let me very quickly show you the interior of the Tavascan. Now this is going to be actually very quick and very brief, because this particular version that I have is the V1 spec. So it's the entry-level Tavascan. It has the least features on the interior. So later on in this video, when I take one of the other vehicles out to drive, maybe I'll show you some more of the interior. But I do just want to show you the general feel of this car, because the interior, the way that it's designed, is sort of different to most other Cupra vehicles that I've seen. There is still that whole sort of sharp, edgy, stylish flair. Like for example, little features like this bronze sort of a trim that comes all the way here to the door handle. It sort of incorporates the design of the door handle in there. I really quite like that. But otherwise, this car has a quite unique feeling with this sort of center area here, which is in plastic, but it kind of makes this car feel like you're not sat in a conventional car, and maybe something out of like Star Trek or something. It really has that wow factor. If you got passengers that come and sit in this car, they will feel like they're in a special car. Bucket seats in this entry-level version with the cloth upholstery. You don't get a panoramic sunroof, which you do get in some of the higher spec trim levels. You also don't get heated seats in this one. Manual adjustment on the seats. You get 12-way electrical adjustment in some of the other versions. Interior ambient lighting in some of the other versions. There is a really cool light that goes along the front dashboard. Not in this car, it doesn't have it. That's really quite good, because it's quite dynamic. When the sat-nav tells you to turn, it will also tell you which way to turn as well. I really quite like that feature. But yeah, you get Alcantara and loads of different materials. But this is the very basic spec, and you still get that sort of special feeling though. You still get this sort of steering wheel in front of you with the flat bottom. You get these haptic feedback buttons on here, which I have mixed feelings about, because I think they look really cool. You might be able to get fingerprints on them, but as I'm driving along, I often accidentally touch them. Now, I've mentioned this to people, and some people have driven the cars and they haven't accidentally touched them. This was something which I found on the Cupra Born as well. But then I've also spoken to some people and they do accidentally touch them. I've been driving this car this morning, not this particular one, but I've been driving a Tavascan this morning only for about half an hour, and I touched it several times. So that can potentially come in your way. What is similar to the Cupra Born is this 5.3-inch instrument cluster over here, which is really quite small. I would have liked it to have been larger, but you can certainly see everything through the steering wheel, all the information that you need through the steering wheel. So I suppose that's quite convenient. You've got the drive mode selector over here, again, like the Cupra Born, not in the center console, it's over here, but that does mean that all the other features, all the other things that this stock has to control. So you've got this stock which does the indicators, it does the windscreen wipers, it does the lights, it does everything over here, which is a little bit weird to get used to, but yeah, that's all on this side because the drive mode selector's on this side. You get wireless charging down here. You get a little area to put your phones. Can I take that out? Might be able to, but yeah, you've got some space for storage, a little bit of space down here actually, which I think should have been able to be utilized a bit better, so you can actually store stuff in there too. But yeah, cup holders in the middle, rather thin, but doubtless they could probably fit some of the bottles and cups that you need. And then you got some more storage down here, which is that much thin actually. I can almost put up to my elbow in there, so that's quite good. You've got some storage in there. You've got a glove box which is actually smaller than I would have liked it to have been. It's quite small, but there's a glove box. And the door bins are not that deep, but they're quite wide, so good, decent opening. So yeah, the interior of the Cupra Tavascan does feel somewhat special. In this particular version as well, this is just the V1, but when I take you out in one of the other vehicles, you'll see what I mean by you really feel like you're in you're in something special. So what is it like to drive the Cupra Tavascan? Well, the car that I showed you earlier was a single motor V1 version. So it was the entry-level spec. It had the single motor, 282 brake horsepower. The one that I'm in right now, this is the dual motor version, and it's the VZ2 spec. So it's the top spec. It comes with all the extras on it, and I'll talk you briefly through some of those. But it also has dual motor setup, so it's got 4-wheel drive. That one is rear-wheel drive, the other one. This one's 4-wheel drive, and it produces 335 brake horsepower. And the difference is quite noticeable actually. As you accelerate and you start to pick up speed, this car, the one that I'm in now, picks up speed quite quickly for a car of this size. It is quite impressive actually, and rather unexpected. I would actually say the case is the same for the single motor version. That's rear wheel drive. It's quite a sporty car as well. I mean, 282 brake horsepower isn't a small amount, so that can get a move on as well. But this one feels a little bit more composed. It's got the 4-wheel drive, so driving it around, I was driving it around a single track road a bit ago. I had the confidence to just keep it locked in, and it is wet today as well. It's been quite muddy on some of these roads, but yeah, this car is quite impressive when it comes to that aspect. Let me talk you through the steering. Now, the steering on this particular Tavascan, or all Tavascans rather, this new model of car that Cupra are bringing out, the steering has been set up to be more sharper, and it's been set up to be more weighty. So it's a little bit more sporty from that perspective, and I can certainly feel that. Maybe it's just in my head that I'm thinking that it's a bit more heavier, but the sharpness, I can definitely feel the sharpness, and it goes and speaks about the agility of this car, because a car of this size shouldn't be as agile as it is. This car is actually, it can turn really well, and when you do turn, it doesn't necessarily lean that much. So because the car is agile, it does feel really sporty, and the suspension feels slightly firm, but it feels more capable when you put it into the bends. It feels like it's planted. Like I told you, there's not much lean, so that's a positive. But yeah, you get grip where you need it, and in the rear wheel drive version, if you want to, you could actually sort of, kick the tail out a little bit, so it's a little bit more fun, I suppose. But this four-wheel drive version, it just hasn't put a foot wrong at the moment from a handling perspective. The steering wheel is direct and the steering wheel is a little bit weighty, but I would say there is slightly less feel coming through the steering wheel from the road surface than I would have liked. I do tend to feel some of the road through the pedals actually, but if we move on to the pedals, I want to talk about the brake, because the brake in this car is a little bit awkward. When you put your foot down on the brake, to try and get a feel for the brake, immediately you'll judge the brake, and then almost always you'll feel like, oh wait, no, I need more brake. So you always have to bear that in mind. The brakes are a little bit difficult to judge, especially starting out. Again, this is my first impressions video of this car. It's the first time I'm driving it today, so I don't know if that's something which you can get used to as you start to own the car and as you start to drive it for longer periods of time. But to begin with, yes, it's a bit of a difficult thing to get used to, and I suppose that is to do with the regenerative braking as well, which you can change using these paddles here. You can use these paddles at the back to change the level of recuperation. So now I put it all the way to the highest level of recuperation, and we're on a downhill. I've taken my foot off the brake and off the accelerator, and it's slowing quite a lot down. But if I start to put it all the way up, let's speed up a little bit. Now we're going on an uphill, but I've got it fully off and it's coasting a little bit more. Now, I really quite like this, especially when you're going down a hill. You can just take your foot off the accelerator or off the brake even, and you can just let the car just float down the hill. And yeah, I like the fact that you can adjust the level of recuperation. Reminds me of the Kia vehicles that I've been driving. So that's really quite, and a Hyundai. So that's really quite good. In terms of comfort, these bucket seats are quite firm at the upper end of the back. So at the top, they are quite firm, a little bit snug, but yeah, I think overall it sort of, you get a sense that the driving experience is geared towards it being dynamic. It's geared towards it being sporty. So you get the grip that you need when you need it. The seats keep you in the seat where you need it, and you can just sort of push the boat out a little bit. You can start to drive a little bit faster, which I think is always good to have the confidence to do that. Now, I do want to talk briefly about the different features that you get in this VZ2 version. This is the top spec, and some of the stuff that I already mentioned about briefly, which are stuff like this panoramic sunroof, which you can simply open using this sort of slidey touch control over here, and you get this window that goes all the way back to the rear cabin, and it doesn't actually rob any headroom back there. The rear passengers, I haven't spoken about the rear passengers in this video so far, but the rear passengers sit quite high, which I think is really good, because you get a nice view looking over the side mirror, over the sort of window ledge, which is over the window sill rather, which is good. You get a great view. The seating position sits quite high anyway on the road, but the overall car has a good low stance. So yeah, it is really interesting. You also get interior ambient lighting, which I'm not sure you can see here really well, but you can see in the doors. You get the light at the front, which is actually really cool, because when you've got the satellite navigation on and it tells you to turn, you get an arrow on the heads-up display to tell you, turn right now, and that dynamically that light sort of moves along dynamically, and it tells you, okay, yeah, you're turning this way. So that's really quite good, and that light obviously will probably serve other purposes, like for example the front collision warning and that sort of stuff. So that's really quite cool. You can see the different mix of materials that are in here, the plastics, the leathers, these heated seats. You can see the sort of pattern that you get on it, this sort of trim back here, this plastic. It looks really good. The headrests aren't adjustable, but they're comfortable enough. I think maybe shorter passengers might. No, I don't think they will, because you just hit your head over here. I don't think shorter passengers would struggle with these seats and the headrest. So overall, I think it's a very good package that's been put together, very attractive. Priced a little bit on the higher side, but if you want an electric SUV that looks really, really stylish, this is the sort of thing that you're gonna buy with your heart. You're gonna maybe desire to want a car that looks like this. I think then this is a very attractive looking car. So if you're interested in buying one, let me know what you think. Let me know if you are interested in a V1. If you're interested in the single motor, the rear-wheel drive is still really quite fun, and it still has plenty of power. So from a value perspective, that might be one that's popular. But if you're wanting the very top spec, which is this one we're talking over 60 grand. So yeah, you might you might be having to spend a little bit more money, but I think it is quite rewarding. It has its little quirky features that are maybe not that favorable, but overall I think it's a great package. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope I was able to explain to you a fair bit about this Tavascan. And if there's anything you want to know, let me know in the comments if you've got any questions. But thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you on the next video. Take care.